Hello and welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to A Stitch in Time. I am Mikey Famine. Thanks for joining us. What a great Blur's Day it's been. A lot has happened, a lot hasn't happened, and a lot of people are now $1,200 richer, which means you can go to patreon.com/A Stitch in Time and help us make the running of the channel a little smoother, if you don't mind. Today I have on Susan Turpin. I don't know. Turpin, I think. One half of Divine Disbelief. Mr. Bull, if you could bring her up, please.
Hi.
Hi.
You caught me while I'm like futzing with my hair here. It is Turpin, sort of like turpentine, but not entirely.
So
That's what I
Turpine.
always-
Got it.
No.
Rhymes with turpentine.
Yeah.
Turpine.
In a sense, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. How is it going with you today, Mr. Mikey?
Great. It's been a great
Blur's Day.
unsuccessful
Blur's Day indeed.
Great Blur's Day. I cleaned up my entire living room of boxes because moved into the new place, and I knew that Thursday I was getting a couch delivered, and I was like, yes, couch time. Excited about the new couch. It looks all cool.
Heck
Cleaned everything up, reread the email, and it did say Thursday,
next
the
week.
30th.
Oof.
Yeah,
Two
I'm
weeks.
2 weeks early.
2 weeks.
But
ouch.
now the challenge is I have to
good.
keep that area clean for 2 weeks until the couch shows up.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
believe in
large
you.
area
I have
because I
faith
made
in
space
you.
for them. I made space for the movers to get in. They're not going to knock into anything. Like, I arranged too well, I think. I was too prepared. But
You're like,
I'm
might not
over
stay
here.
this way.
No, there might be just like 16 cat toys and 5 dog beds there because they're not going to respect the fact that this space is sacred. But I'm talking to you like I know you because I do. But introduce
not
yourself
everybody
to people
does.
who may not know who you is.
So,
Other people than
like
me.
you said, yeah, it's like, hi, I'm Susan. I am half of Divine Disbelief. I host the show with my partner, Nathaniel. He is wonderful. He is in the other room, actually. I don't know where he went. I am a former Planned Parenthood employee, so that was, a big reason behind me being on in the first place.
Yes.
Let's see. I do a whole bunch of activism stuff. I haven't done nearly as much stuff recently, but used to do a lot of stuff when I was in Texas. We recently moved to the Portland, Oregon metro, which is wonderful. Usually there would be a forest behind me, but I'm on my own computer today.
Can't just borrow from whoever you want all the time.
Nah. Trying to think of anything else interesting about me. I have a dinosaur tattoo. It's an Aguhoceratops. Actually, it's 2 Aguhoceratops. It's a species of dinosaur that was discovered at Big Bend National Park, which is where I broke my ankle last year. So that's...
You can't just make up words.
The Aguhoceratops is closely related to a Triceratops.
Sure it is. Sure you're made up dinosaurs related to other dinosaurs. Where's Dapper Dino? Dapper, if you can come in here, please, and clarify this. You probably know. Have you met him? He's an amazing dude, and he probably knows the name of 80% of the dinosaurs that we found.
Probably. I got to actually impart some wisdom on somebody the other day when somebody said pterodactyls were dinosaurs, and I was like, well, actually, and like pushed up my glasses and everything, and I was like, they're pterodons, which is the flying reptile. And they were all like, oh, thank you for that. And I'm all like, I was expecting more pushback, so yeah.
Right. I was ready for this fight. You gave up so easily.
All about it. Not so much.
You're half of Divine Disbelief. What the hell is Divine Disbelief?
So we run a YouTube show that is secular news and opinion. We do our deep dives every week. Nathaniel and I alternate between, between weeks and everything. It's basically a lot of stuff. He does more stuff having to do with the Bible and the historicity of claims in the Bible, and not so much theology, but history and scholarship and stuff. I do stuff that's a little more how Christianity and religion, really religion specifically, or moreover, affects stuff having to do with pop culture. I did one about conversion therapy last week. I did one on Paula White, who I can say so many words about Paula White. And then I think I did one. I did one of the Christian music industry. Oh yeah, we have a lot of time because we're in time.
We've got time. We got some time for Paula White. Oh, do tell. Do tell.
White. So Paula White, on top of being a really awful prosperity gospel preacher, who her latest shtick is to say, well, according to Psalm 91, which is something like pray for your leaders or something like that, I don't entirely know, you need to send me a donation of $91. And why don't you just go ahead and round that up to an even 100? And it's like, I hate you so much, Paula White. And she's had churches that have been foreclosed on. She's run them into the ground and stuff like that. So yeah, she's pretty much like any typical spiritual advisor to Donald Trump. So she's terrible.
It's funny you should mention that, because as awful as my shilling is, Pastor Tony Spell is asking everyone to take that $1,200 that you're getting.
I hate this guy.
Can you guess where this is going?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course.
Just
because he needs it for bail money. Because he got charged with like 3 misdemeanors or something for being all like, hey, let's everybody congregate while there's a shelter in place and stay at home order and stuff. And it's just like, I just can't.
Unfortunately, TMZ broke this story or produced this article that I'm looking from. They have Easter Sunday pics, and it is nut to butt in there. They are stacked on top of each other on Easter Sunday.
Wasn't that when he bussed people in order to get as many people as possible into his services?
Look, I don't know why you're coming with all this hostility. You just need to do the hashtag Pastor Spell Stimulus Challenge. That's all you got to do.
Hashtag Pastor Spell Stimulus Challenge. Can kiss my left butt cheek. I can tweet that, right? That's fine.
Yeah, cool. It's a long hashtag. Well, so is Pastor Spell Stimulus Challenge, to be fair. So you just donate your stimulus money and then give it to North American evangelist missionaries or music ministries who haven't received any money from parishioners in the past month. So take that $1,200, even though you're not working and you haven't been able to feed yourself. Just take that money and give it to these people, because
of course,
they need food more than you.
They need to fuel their jets, much like Kenneth Copeland does, and get their anointing oil on their hands and stuff.
If only they could run their jets on anointing oil, they'd be just fine.
Ooh.
If they could just buy
be a
like
lot
olive
more
oil.
Safe. Yeah.
Or
I imagine that's what the anointing oil is anyway.
Anoint it. Yeah. It's just gasoline that they're just smearing on people's foreheads. Just sprinkle it on the babies. Just give them a little spattering.
Yeah. Don't get near an open flame for a little while, and you'll be fine. The smell will eventually go away. It's cool. Ugh.
Oh, hello.
Yeah,
what's up, brother?
When we lived in DFW in Dallas Fort Worth, that's where Kenneth Copeland is. I think he's in Fort Worth, I'm wanting to say. Yeah, we never encountered him, but I did see jobs come across LinkedIn for Kenneth Copeland Ministries. So that was cool.
Sometimes I get those emails. Sometimes I get those emails about like pyramid schemes too. I just usually ignore them.
You're just
So
like,
what you need to do is
delete.
just bring in 100 of your friends and get them all to give us $100, and then they'll give their friend. Yikes. So do you guys have any cool things from Divine Disbelief coming up soon-ish? Any cool videos you want to tease?
Well, so there's one that Nathaniel is working on. He's working on script stuff right now, that we've been getting a lot of really awesome people's help with. Not to toot your horn or anything.
Some on my shoulder.
Oh, yes. This one is a response to an inspiring philosophy video, and Nathaniel is obsessing over the script, of course, because he wants to make sure that everything is correct. Because with response videos, you basically have to take what they say and then spend the time refuting it. So you sort of have to like break down what they're saying and then break down what your refutation is. There's a cat that's next to me. Hello, cat. I don't know. Yeah, you can't really see
locked all of my. Dexter has been locked out of the office because he is notorious for clawing up my leg and then bumping everything and unplugging everything.
And all like, I love you so much. Yeah. Oh, there she goes. Bye. So he's working really hard on that video. I'm working on doing the animations and editing it and everything. I am having to learn a lot of editing stuff, sort of teaching myself and doing some Google searches having to do with video pad. Yeah. So it's fun. It's a good learning experience.
The things they don't tell you about having a YouTube channel. It's all the back end learning you have to do.
Right. It's like I didn't realize that I would have to, basically learn how to, splice stuff and do all this stuff. And it seems like it's not that hard once you're used to it, either once you're used to it or when you're not doing it at all. It seems like it's not that hard. But when you're just coming into it, it's like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is so like weird to me.
As soon as you think you've got it figured out, you hit go and nothing happens.
That sounds like us in OBS, actually.
And then you have that Jeranism moment where you go, that's interesting. Like, you
what did I do wrong? Yeah. And then it's like, here. I am, yup. And then I actually, you would be proud of me, because I was searching for like overlays and stuff for our camera and searching for layouts and everything. So I'm redoing our live stream layout and stuff. So I'm very proud of myself for doing all this stuff, working and doing everything that I can. So
just make sure you have the audio output on monitor. That's what I learned. So I learned the hard way. And then I figured out I was doing that wrong too. So it's
like that wasn't what I was supposed to do. Yeah. Oh. So you're not getting you're not getting the game audio.
Yeah. Booleanenator, a newcomer to the channel, I think. The worst part is when you render the video, which takes 30 minutes, only to find the audio wasn't included. That's what I'm saying. Then. Like,
that hurts my heart.
People don't know that.
That hurts my heart so much. Yeah.
Right. I spend 10 hours on a music project just to figure out that none of my plugins were included because I didn't do the buses. It gets deep fast, people. So
yeah,
look both ways.
And you just get real depressed.
Yeah. Just look both ways.
Oh, there's the cat
you said you worked for Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
What did you do for them?
So I was pretty much your run-of-the-mill accounts payable coordinator. It wasn't really directly involved with anything at the health center level, but I did deal a lot with having to do with government grants and restricted funding and stuff like that. So I'm still somewhat familiar. It's been about just over a year since I left. But I also did a lot of the advocacy stuff in terms of tabling at events and basically being the representative for Planned Parenthood at a few of them, like the sole representative. And then I dealt a lot with other reproductive justice stuff too, in addition to that. But Planned Parenthood was arguably, I realized it was a very long pause, I'm sorry. Arguably the best job I've ever had. It's a very long pause. Best job I ever had. But the problem with nonprofits is that you do it because you love it. You don't do it because you're making a lot of money. And I got to a point where it was really hard to make ends meet. And I was like, I have to take a private sector job again because it's a nonprofit and they have very strict rules on any overtime and anything like that. So, but I still find a lot of love in their mission and their work and a lot of stuff that they do, and how they advocate rather for reproductive justice and everything. So I still have a very special place in my heart for them.
Boole, you gotta say that. Come on in here, big guy.
What? Some might say that was a pregnant pause?
Fool. That was the best.
That was a header right from the top of the arc there. Like, that was just beautiful. Beautiful.
This is one of the things where if we were on StreamYard, then that would have been the highlighted comment for the rest of the stream.
Just bloop across the bottom for the rest of the day.
It was amazing.
That stays right there. That was perfectly timed. Well played, sir.
Yeah.
Nonprofit like our NHS list. Yes, Wayne, like your national health system that you have over in Brexit land. I don't know what your guys' name is. Do you live in England? Do you live in Britain? You live in Brexitopia, Brexlandia.
Supposedly, it's one is the country, and I don't do geography. There's a reason that I'm an advocate and not a geography teacher.
I don't think they actually know. I think they know.
Yeah, that's
that
a good
we
point.
don't
They might
know.
not. Yeah.
I think they're fairly confident that we don't know, and as long as
they're
they
counting
say
on us not
something,
challenging them.
Because how could we?
Exactly.
They have like 46 Irelands, 14 Britons, 2 UKs, and Ireland, Scotland's in there, Wales, Croatia. Like, they just add stuff in there. We don't know.
Are you waiting for somebody to challenge you on Croatia?
I don't know. They could tell me anything. I'm like, oh shit, that's part of the UK? America is?
It's like, oh, okay.
Shit.
That's fine.
I didn't even know that.
I guess we got reabsorbed. I mean, it's fine. Oh, hello, cat. I found
he's constantly reminding me that he invented us. Oh, hi, kitty.
That's my cat.
That's what we need.
More cats. She's not in the mood for your bullshit.
More cats on the channel, because there's one thing that the internet loves. It's women and cats. So
she objects to everything.
What's something that the everyday person, what's something that they can do to be an ally for such causes? Because I was on the show with you and my homegirl Courtney, but I did a lot of listening on that one. So I would again like to offer that same platform here. How can people do things to help if they're
kind of trying to make sure that they can be awesome? Yeah. So obviously a lot of what's involved in it is monetary donations, time donations, things of that nature, helping out with stuff like clinic escorting. Often it's not done strictly through Planned Parenthood, but there are other organizations that handle it a lot of the time. Monetary donations always help, and even if your you're wanting your donations to be used for one specific thing. Like if you're like, I want this money to specifically go to education purposes, then you can put a restriction on that money. You can say, yeah, this is all that it can be used for. You can spell that out. A lot of people leave endowments for Planned Parenthood and stuff in their wills, which I think is really awesome. And then there's always, if you buy stuff on Amazon, you can use smile.amazon.com and choose Planned Parenthood, like either PPFA, which is Planned Parenthood Federation of America, or the one that I worked for, which is Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas. You can choose that as your nonprofit, your charity that you're donating to. So those are sort of good. The monetary ones are sort of good passive ways to do it. The time donations are obviously going to be more active ways for doing everything. Clinic escorting and helping them table and go to events and things of that nature. There is also, that's what I was going to say. I was like, there was one more that I had. Also, there's just sort of making sure that you're being a voice for those, and this is just a good thing to do in general, being a voice for those who might not have as much of a voice as you do. Advocating for people who are, oppressed in some way, whether it's systematic oppression or, societal oppression, things of that nature. Making sure that you are an active ally, an active advocate, making sure that you are speaking out when you see, things that you don't agree with. Like if I saw somebody who was, saying things like Planned Parenthood is awful and they're just an abortion mill and da-da-da-da-da, I would be the first one to be just all like, hold the phone. That is not what they are. It does involve a lot of times correcting a lot of misinformation, but and more often than not, you are not necessarily there in order to convince, and this goes for, whatever sort of, discussion you might get into. You're not there necessarily to change the opinion of your interlocutor. You're there to potentially influence the people around them, like the people who are watching the conversation happening, and making sure that you're keeping people honest, you are giving correct information, for making a claim, cite your sources, sort of thing. That's just good habits in general.
I was about to say, like, basic human communication.
You would
lie.
think. You would think. It's not always the case.
Please have some basis for the words coming out of your face. Like just simple.
This is not a minion meme on Facebook.
I don't know. I got some Pepe the Frog shit that I've been really trying to get off my chest.
Oh,
no, absolutely not.
Take that to 4chan, man.
I've been warned against that place. It's like the elephant graveyard of the internet.
Yes. Yeah, I'm on Reddit enough to know what to avoid. Not just on Reddit, but on the internet in general.
It's a hard pass. And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what's one of the biggest misconceptions about Planned Parenthood? And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but.
I think the biggest one is that the biggest, the I guess, I don't know what the right word is. Most prolific service? That's not the right word. That's the largest percentage of services. We'll say that. Largest percentages of services go to abortions, and that's not true. It's approximately 3% of what Planned Parenthood does. The other 97% consists of a lot of preventative care, and it's not just care for, it's not just based solely on what genitals you have or what reproductive parts you have. They have things for, everybody, because they have STI testing. They do, breast exams and pap smears and stuff like that for those who have those parts. And so I'm petting the cat at the same time, and I need to not do that. She just looks really, oh, she wants food. That's why she's looking really cute. Damn cat.
Ulterior
and
motive.
they, exactly. I was like, I know you. You're a cat. They offer like a fertility testing for men. There's a lot of them that offer vasectomies. And there are a number of the Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas health centers that started offering gender-affirming hormone therapy, which is really awesome because it's a good majority of them that offer that now. Because a lot of times it's so hard to find doctors and clinics that are willing to work with transgender people. And it's so important to make sure that we are all living the best lives that we can. And that's a very, very important service for them to offer, in my opinion, anyway. They also offer at least a few, I don't know if it's all of them, but at least a few of them, they offer what's called PrEP and PEP. PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis, and PEP is, I believe, post-exposure prophylaxis. If I'm 90, actually, I have that in my notes that I have here. Which, prophylaxis is the word I'm looking for.
If only you had notes about this exact thing.
If only I'd written like 4 pages of them before the previous interview.
Damn.
Right?
If only.
Yeah, they offer PrEP and PEP in order to, if you are at a risk of being exposed to HIV, you can either greatly reduce your exposure, or if you already have been exposed, you can greatly reduce your chances of actually contracting HIV. So those are very, very important services, regardless of basically whoever you have sex with. And it's not just for, not just reproductive health stuff, it's also just health stuff in general. So a lot of times people who visit Planned Parenthoods, that's the only care that they get a lot of the time, because they're in such low income areas that they are pretty much the only medical services that are offered to a lot of people.
So it sounds like Planned Parenthood does a lot of good for a lot of people. Who on earth would ever want to oppose such a place? I mean, especially in Texas.
I know.
Is there like one political group that is constantly attacking Planned Parenthood at every waking moment?
Yeah, I feel like it's a color that is very similar to this right here. It's my fancy ketchup Yeti.
I'm colorblind.
It's a color very similar to that. I'm skeptical of this claim. I'm a good skeptic. I'm skeptical of this claim.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did go through. You helped me pick out a layout for 45 minutes. I doubt you would.
I did.
Oh, this green one's nice. Oh.
I did. I really like this one. Let's try this blue instead. Let's go for this blue. It's sort of a little silvery.
I wrote myself into a corner there.
Yeah, you did. You did. I'm glad I have the evidence to refute your claim.
Damn
I'm good at that. I can't help it.
Better luck next time.
It's a lot of times the people who oppose the services that Planned Parenthood offers are those who sometimes just have a basic misunderstanding of what the services are that are offered and percentages of services and how funding is used. I'm still holding my Carmex. I don't know why. People have basic misunderstandings of a lot of the really simple and Planned Parenthood 101 sort of facts, because they hear so much of it from alternative news outlets and from their preachers, their pastors. They hear it on the pulpit. They hear it from family members who happen to be anti-choice, and they don't bother to actually look any of this up themselves, or they don't bother to verify any information. And it's very heartbreaking to me, because I think a lot of people would be very much, in favor of the services that they offer if they knew, if they knew more information about them.
Yeah. And it kind of strikes me as oddly coincidental that the same people who are so rigid religiously are also so rigid when they vote. So their politicians almost mirror those same ideas. So you have a bunch of uninformed people voting for, you guessed it, uninformed people who assert these wild claims about all these things happening in these facilities, which kind of aren't really the case. Like a girl getting a pap smear is not the same as an abortion.
Right.
Somebody just going in because they have questions about what's going on with some things in their body that they're not really sure of what it is. It's a urinary tract infection, but they got to go for free, and it's good for them. So
exactly,
that's the problem, guys.
Yeah, and a lot of with clinic escorting stuff, it's not just at what are called ambulatory surgical centers, which I touched on that a little bit last week. Texas passed some laws back in 2013 having to do with how centers that provide surgical abortions have to be maintained, how they have to be built, and how they have to be maintained. A lot of it was very, very arbitrary sort of stuff. It was stuff like how wide halls have to be, how big a room has to be, how you have to have separate recovery rooms and separate surgical rooms, and how, you have to have a specific kind of staff that are each performing specific functions. And it's not, there's no room for leeway, none at all. The licensing board there is very, very rigid. They're very stringent on everything. And I understand, wanting to have a quality of care standard. I get that. I'm all for that. The problem was that whenever these laws were passed, and they're called trap laws a lot of the time, which stands for, I have that in my notes too, because that's how I roll. Where did that go? Targeted regulation of abortion providers, the trap laws. A lot of the centers that were actually performing surgical abortions did not have the funding in order to retrofit everything for the new laws. So a lot of clinics ended up closing. They were forced to close because of monetary reasons. There was one that was in Corpus that, that was the only, it was one of the only abortion providers that was even, anywhere within, so many miles. That one ended up closing because the doctor was just like, I can't afford to do this. I can't afford to basically redo this whole entire clinic. And as a result of all those clinics closing, Texas is now the state with the most cities that are more than 100 miles away from the closest ambulatory surgical center that can perform surgical abortions, because it's so many of them. There was somewhere else I was going with that. I don't remember. I'll remember in 3 minutes and be all like, that's what I was saying.
Just pop up in the middle of the night, just kick the blankets off. So I'm looking on, because I remember doing something similar, a similar story. So in all of Missouri, it's looking like there's about 10.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Missouri's not a super large state, but
no.
When people talk about closing Planned Parenthoods, and they close the one that's in St. Louis proper, well, then the next one is 20 miles out. So if that one gets closed too, then they have to go all the way to Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Kansas City, Kansas, the home of the Chiefs. Sorry. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
I will fight you in the streets. But there's not like these. There's not a Planned Parenthood like a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts or something, or McDonald's that's on every corner. There's only so many of these per city. So anytime that one of these is at risk, it's kind of important that they're safeguarded by the community, because even if you don't agree with all of the services that they provide enough good services that we don't want these to disappear in our communities.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess just like, I'm like, just have it like Starbucks, just have them everywhere. But then
that'd be great.
They'd probably have to switch over for the nonprofit thing, though. Not a lot of nonprofits on every corner.
Yeah, probably. They'd have to make a few adjustments. Well, and a big thing, like you were mentioning, with having to go to, to different places in order to access this care that they're looking for. So since so many Planned Parenthood health centers are located in the lower income communities, in order to receive care, if one of those Planned Parenthood health centers closes, the burden then goes on to the surrounding clinics and the surrounding doctors, and all of a sudden their number of patients gets, drastically increased because there were so many patients that were being seen at a Planned Parenthood. It puts a strain on the staff, it puts a strain on resources. And it's a very similar thing with trying to, they say a lot of the time that we should defund Planned Parenthood, which not a single dollar of federal money goes towards abortion services. That's called the Hyde Amendment. And more often than not, unless it is a case of a danger to the life of the mother or the fetus, or something else that is extremely life-threatening, health insurance more often than not doesn't cover it at all. And especially with insurance that is insurance that is carried by somebody who works in the public sector, they won't cover them in the slightest. Like, even if it is a danger to the life of the mother or the fetus, they won't cover it. So the defunding of it and trying to restrict government funding for the other services that they provide, stuff like pap smears and STI testing and education and the fertility testing and the vasectomies and the IUDs and things of that, and crap like that, which is not crap, but still, more people put it. What are you doing, Kat?
Just give in.
That's what I just need to do. She's just going to start, I'm going to turn off my keyboard for whenever she inevitably climbs all over it. Oh, hello. Yeah, she's sniffing. What are you doing? And
tell her to push Alt F4. That's how she gets the treats.
Please don't. Please don't. nor Alt SS. Please no. Yeah, with since so much of what Planned Parenthood does and their preventative services are based on some of the government funding and donations and things of that nature, if they do the defunding of Planned Parenthood, then that ends up putting a strain on the insurance carriers and the Medicaid system. So that's just it. It's just sort of condenses where all of these. Why did you?
Has a tail.
Butt there.
Has a tail, just jaws across the top.
Yeah. This is great. Thank you, Kitty. Now she's gonna sit on my actual laptop itself. Yeah. And I think she knows it because it's dinner time for her. It just ends up putting strains on other systems. And I think people don't realize that. They don't realize how much it would just devastate a lot of systems. Like, Medicaid is already kind of precarious anyway. there's a lot of restrictions on stuff and everything, but I don't think it would be able to stand having that much put on it. I don't. Right. I don't think Medicare could hold up. I don't think health insurance could hold up. Yeah.
So one thing one thing that popped in my brain as you were saying that is like, so if we actually got universal health care, like if we actually got it, would you think we would still need a Planned Parenthood and their job would just be easier, or would their job just be absolved by the healthcare providers?
I think they would find a way to actually make it work within the universal healthcare system, because they're still providing essential services, and it's sort of the same as if you close health centers in certain communities, then people aren't, it puts a strain on the other stuff. I think they would find a way to adapt. I think they wouldn't necessarily, just be a nonprofit model. But I think they would find a way to adapt and make everything work. They'd find a way to keep serving the community. That's for sure. And one other, I think I remembered the thing that I was going to say. I'm trying to think if this is what I was going to say. So one really great thing that Planned Parenthood offers is, in addition to similar to the vasectomies rather, is what's called long-acting reversible contraceptives, which is stuff like IUDs, stuff like the birth control implants, things that are like that the IUDs can be left in, they're FDA approved for like 5 years. And I don't know if it was you I was talking about this with, but I got my IUD replaced like right before I left Texas. Like the day before.
No, you did not talk to me about your IUD. No, that is not something that we spoke on. You might have been talking to Courtney, and I was around, but I was Nathaniel.
You're like, I didn't hear that part.
She wasn't talking to just me about any of that. No need to worry.
It was one of those, like, I love talking about my IUD, so it wouldn't have surprised me. With my most sincere apologies to everybody who's probably all like, why is she talking about her IUD in the first place? But
it's a mature audience.
So
they know what's up.
Yeah,
they got kids.
Yeah, they get it. Yeah, they got it. So one of the things they offer is the LARCs, the long-acting reversible contraceptives, and they had a program in Colorado which, in addition to introducing comprehensive sex education, they also started offering either free or severely discounted, or heavily discounted rather, discounted LARCs like the IUDs to people who wanted them. And when you provide contraception, when you provide birth control, whether it's, whatever form it is, in the form of IUDs, implants, condoms, birth control pills, sort of whatever your flavor of birth control is, whenever you offer that, you end up having fewer unintended pregnancies. Yes, hello.
But what about...
Yes, you're a cat.
Can't the girls just close their legs? I mean, abstinence is the best way.
We actually, if you believe in Jesus, we have documented evidence that abstinence is not 100% effective. I'm just saying. I'm not the first person to use that argument. It's like, yeah, you might be like a 16-year-old girl who gets told by the angel Gabriel, hey, the Lord has found favor in you. And you might go, well, I don't really have a choice. Yeah, eventually. But they found that the rate of unintended pregnancies ended up decreasing dramatically, which as a result ends up with the number of abortions decreasing dramatically. So a lot of the people who say, we want Planned Parenthood defunded, they don't realize that you take away access to contraception, then you just end up with more abortions. And when you take away access to safe legal abortion, then you just end up with more people trying at-home methods, ordering pills from online that they don't know if are reliable.
Which is the scariest thing I can ever think of. Possibly.
Oh yeah. It's a terrifying thought.
Essentially at-home surgery.
Basically.
That is like some horror movie shit that I can't even put my brain there.
No. No. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people have had to do. That's what they have had to resort to. I love how the cat's head is still just right there. You're a strange, strange cat. I hope you know that. But also I have a tattoo of her, so I can't really talk much. Yeah, you take away that access, you open up the risks for and not just unintended pregnancies, but also stuff like STI rates go up dramatically. You end up, and that's also tied very, very, it's very, very deeply entwined with comprehensive sex education, which is another thing that Planned Parenthood offers. Just saying. The whole idea of consent and protection and things of that nature, which are things that they are big into. If you teach kids, teenagers, whatever, you teach kids, from a young age, if you teach them about consent, then you have a good foundation for teaching them about sex later on, and you have a good foundation for having the sometimes difficult to have conversations. Because I don't know about you, my parents never had the sex talk with me. Never did. Had to I think it's figure it out.
Well, you didn't have to go to that you didn't go on that awkward field trip where you went to like the place that played all the gross videos and they separated the boys and the girls, and it was just like this horribly awkward, everybody's sitting next to each other like, and then that bus ride back to the school and you're just like, don't touch me. I didn't know you had that thing down there. What? No.
So what they did do, because I was born and raised in Texas, what they did do was in 7th grade, they had a program that came to our middle school called Sex Can Wait. And it was bad. It was not Abstinence Plus, which Abstinence Plus is basically just don't have sex, but if you do, try and use protection. It was strictly abstinence only, because they did do the whole like, hey, these are pictures of like genitals with different STIs. Granted, this was oh god, what year was this? This was 20 years ago, because I was in 7th grade, and that was this was 20 years ago. So I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And they don't teach you, or they didn't teach us anyway. They didn't teach us about any of, how sex actually happened. They didn't teach us how pregnancy actually happens. They didn't teach us about, anything about consent or anything of that nature. And it was so awkward for everybody. But I do remember, one thing I distinctly do remember is some of the less mature kids starting a little chant, a little cheer.
Oh no.
That was basically like it basically went, it's short. So, sex can wait, masturbate.
Yikes. Okay, yes.
Yeah, yikes on bikes. Yikes on bikes.
That's all I need is a bunch of 7th graders chanting that. It's like, what? No, don't say words. No words from you.
13 years old. No. Oh God,
I don't want to hear that. I need
Yeah,
an
it was
adult.
bad. And then
Ugh.
the program also sold t-shirts. So you had these, seventh graders wearing t-shirts that across them said sex can wait. And it's like, this is
Like,
Texas. It's bad.
why does a young man at 13 need a sex can wait shirt? You're 13. You're
Yeah,
supposed to be
you would.
you're supposed to be
Yeah.
playing in dirt. You know what I'm saying? Climbing
Yeah.
trees, having adventures with your friends, playing D&D, eating orange slices, shooting some hoops. Kid shit. You little horn
That
dogs.
was your
You know
childhood,
what?
wasn't it? Right there. You're like, I still
Just
eat
swap
orange
out
slices.
just swap out D&D and Nintendo and we're good.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
I had
Yeah.
a normal-ish upbringing. Um,
Ish.
ish. I don't Texas. Well, that is a perfect example why comprehensive sex education is so important. Because
Hmm.
if the answer is kids wearing T-shirts talking about sex, then I think we've missed the point somewhere in
Yep.
any shape, form, or
Yep.
fashion. And I think
Yeah.
moving forward, especially teaching teenagers when they finally do go back to school, having something in the curriculum about consent is huge.
Hmm.
Because
Well,
if
and
we want to change things, it has to start early, and people have to understand things early. Not
oh
I
yeah.
didn't know I could. Not the I didn't know I couldn't do this.
Hmm. Yeah. And there are some programs that I know the Unitarian Church in Corpus, which is where I'm from. The Unitarian Church in Corpus offers like the age appropriate sex ed talks
Hmm.
that do start from a young age with consent, which is your body is your own. You if you don't want to hug somebody, you don't have to hug somebody. If somebody is touching you in a way that you don't like, you can tell them to stop. Like you have the autonomy and you have the power to tell people that I don't like that, you should stop. And it moves on to puberty stuff and actual factual puberty stuff rather than not mentioning anything. um and then get into sex ed talk, and it's not um the program that the Unitarian Church offers is realistic is the bad word. It's based in real life. Like it's not something that's just going, hey, you should never have sex because if you have sex then you're basically like a chewed piece of gum, which is an example that they use. They use the chewed gum example, they use the candy bar example, they use there's something having to do with a shoe or so. No, the shoe one is a condom thing, which basically
Wear them all the time if they're your favorite.
sort of.
The
it was
same
it was
pair.
more like yeah, no, change it out. Um, it was basically in order to wear a shoe, you have to use a sock as protection for your foot. So it shows it had this. We saw this video. Nathaniel and I have done the comprehensive sex ed talk, a number of times. He is responsible for a good portion of it. It's a really brilliant talk that we both worked on, mostly him. He found this video where it's this guy demonstrating how you would demonstrate without demonstrating how to properly put on a condom. So it's super cool. And it's like, okay, I get this metaphor. I understand. So it's cool. Um, and again, my train of thought totally derailed. Why do I keep derailing? I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Well,
So once
I
they
guess the
teach
whole like
actual age appropriate stuff,
yeah, I guess the condom on a banana or a cucumber or something is better than here's a T-shirt. Just wear this.
basically. Yeah, it's way better. And it's so in Texas, there are actually rules in the Texas Education Code against teaching comprehensive sex ed. It says, well, not entirely against. That's not the correct term. There are rules in the Texas Education Code that you can only teach abstinence only sex education. If you are going to offer a sex ed program, it cannot be a comprehensive sex ed program. You can't demonstrate how to put on a condom. You can't talk about contraceptives. You can't talk about any real life examples of anything, unless it is to explicitly scare a child. Apparently, you
can show like genital herpes or something. Like then you can. Yeah, come on.
I don't know if that's changed. I don't know if they're not doing the whole here's what genitals look like with warts and herpes and all of these things. Yeah, you can't Texas schools are not allowed to participate in what are called condom availability programs. It was shown, I think it's up in the Northeast, it was shown that schools that offered condom availability programs actually had, I don't know the exact number, but they had also a dramatically decreased rate of STIs and pregnancies. So if you're teaching kids about the basics of sex and sex ed, if you're teaching these kids about this, they're not going to learn from places like church, and they're not going to learn from places like porn, which is not necessarily a healthy way to learn about sex a lot of the time. Your mileage may vary, but it's where a lot of kids get unhealthy ideas for what sex is supposed to be like.
Yeah, you don't want to learn sex from like Jenna Jameson. Like you should probably like have some sort of physician explain your anatomy, what's going on with you, and how to keep yourself safe. Not, all right, guys, bring in the dump truck. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No, that's not how you learn.
We're not doing DVDA. We're not doing that.
Don't get the discs confused, please. Don't switch those discs. I need you to make sure they see A and not B.
Yeah. Yeah, and making sure that you are also teaching kids proper terminology for body parts too, because we don't really realize how often we don't use scientifically accurate anatomical terminology. People are they're calling the penis the pee-pee or like I don't know. I call it a dick, so I don't know. Or they're calling, they're calling vaginas and vulvas, by these cutesy little names that end up teaching kids to be embarrassed about using these anatomically correct terms. So if it's just like consent, if you teach them from the beginning what these anatomically correct terms are, then you're more likely to have productive conversations in the future about whatever they're talking about, basically. Yeah. Same. I feel like I've just gone on about like sex education for so long.
I'm not uncomfortable. I just choked. Which is
it's okay. I do like that you're using the green screen cup today. Cat, what do you do?
I don't know what you're talking about. What cup?
That green screen cup is amazing.
Haven't the foggiest on what you're on.
No
but
idea.
It looks like we are just about out of time. So as we wrap up, if anybody has any other questions for Susan, for myself, it's also Ask an Atheist Day. So if you guys are atheists, so post that in your social media. See if anybody asks you any questions. Today is a day of understanding and answering questions, not snarky rebuttals. Just if people have questions, now's their day to ask you without any kind of clapback. and we want to be accepting to people who are just asking questions.
Yeah, the stream I was on just before this was a group of, there were 7 of us, because Nathaniel and I were both on, directly next to each other. It was 7 of us, and we're all atheists from a few different countries that were answering questions, not just from, a set of questions that people had asked beforehand, but sort of taking questions from the chat. So there were a lot of, questions about how do you deal with stuff after you die, or how do you deal with, not you dealing with stuff after you die. How do you come to terms with, the lack of belief in an afterlife, and how do you reconcile certain things and stuff. So it was a very, very good conversation. It was a great conversation. So it was a lot of fun.
I think I tried this last year, and I got like 2 questions. And as soon as I said I don't believe in an afterlife, they're like, idiot, and then blocked me. So I was like, all right, see you guys next year.
That was productive. That was great. I enjoyed this conversation.
Glad I put that out there, but hopefully no one else has that experience. So I don't hate the person for that. I hate them for other reasons. Mr. Boole, any questions for you, sir? You're part of this show. I count you as a valued member of the squad, and your voice is...
You are a valued member, Boole.
I appreciate that. I don't have any questions.
Have we touched base on everything?
Yes, you have. You guys have done a wonderful job, and it's always, I love producing the show. It's because it's so relaxed and so informative at the same time. So I appreciate you coming on the show, Susan.
High praise.
It's good to see you again, and as always, Mikey.
Oh, my man. All right. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of questions up in the chat. So if you have any questions, hop on our Facebook page. You can put it in the comments on this video. We have a Discord server, which I think is in the description of something. You'll be able to find that easily enough.
I'm in that Discord.
Yeah, it's good times. Also remember us on Patreon, please, with everything going on. And make sure you check out Susan. I will see you guys next Thursday. Thank you so much. Have a good night.